Today we are going to be discussing antioxidants with Ken Swartz. How you doing today, Ken?
Doing pretty good.
All right, good deal. Well, thanks for joining us. And let me go ahead and I'm going to give Ken's bio here. And so Ken Swartz, aka Ken the Scientist, is the founder and chief science officer at C60 Purple Power, which is a health and wellness company committed to delivering the highest quality C60 products available. So Ken earned a Master of Science degree from the University of Colorado at Denver and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Arizona State University. He spent the early part of his career as a secondary school teacher and is passionate about helping and educating people. And it was in 2016 he founded C60 Purple Power, which offers C60 made with certified organic oils. And I'll have you actually go into all of this about the C60. So I'll have you expand on this. But Ken also believes that your health is your responsibility, and he is on a mission to help people feel empowered to take back control of their health. And again, thanks for joining us, Ken.
Oh, glad to be on.
Yeah, glad to have you. And so why don't you give your backstory, how you've discovered C60 and how you discovered Purple Power?
Well, I was working on a metal oxygen fusion reactor project. And one of the things is it's, a lot of the people that worked on that, it's kind of a new type of fusion. And a lot of people that worked on it had, the late doctor this and the late doctor that. So I didn't want to have that happen to me or my crew. So I went out looking for materials that could help protect us because, it was kind of a new thing. It could be some unknown type of radiation. And I discovered this stuff called carbon 60. It's C60 for short. And they did a study where they basically gave one set of rats got the C60, the other set of rats didn't get anything. They're the control rats. Then they hit them with a fatal dose of radiation, and all the control rats died, whereas all the C60 rats lived. And when I read about that, I said, that's the stuff for us, just to cover what was going on. We didn't know. And so I got some for my crew and myself, and I used it during the experimentation. And what's really interesting, and I kept using it after the experiment was over because by the afternoon blahs went away. After you eat lunch, at 2 you want to go to sleep. That kind of disappeared, and a little aches and pains went away. And what really happened about 8 months after, I went into my eye doctor, and this is a long story, but the short of it is my drusen or dry macular degeneration had completely disappeared.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, my dad has macular degeneration, so that's a great story. So completely
disappeared. And and just one thing is a fluke, right? It could just be that. But in the meantime, Gary Rodriguez, he was the electrical engineer on the project, and he had developed. He had type 2 diabetes, Rodriguez, right? And so he had developed severe wet macular degeneration. He had all kinds of lesions on the inside of his eyeball. So I made up a formulation of C60 and MCT oil because that's MCT that's medium chain triglycerides. They can turn into ketones in your body. So they're like flex fuel for your cells. They can use glucose or ketones. And using about a year and a half, his wet macular degeneration completely disappeared. And at that point, I knew I was onto something. And, and I had been making formulations for my family, friends, and myself. And then my alternative healthcare practitioners kind of heard about it, and they started using it and had good results. And then they gave it to their patients, and their patients had good results. And so one thing that led the other, and pretty soon I was kind of like a C60 milkman driving around the Colorado Front Range here, dropping off product. And then one day, internet influencer mentioned how the product had really helped them in their health. And sales went through the roof, and that's kind of how I'm talking to you today.
All right, awesome. So C60 is an antioxidant, and people are, not everybody, but a lot of people I'm sure that are listening to this, they're familiar with other antioxidants such as glutathione and maybe not as familiar with Sod and catalase, but I think C60 also falls into the same category where a lot of people haven't heard about it. And why is that? Why haven't most people or a lot of people?
It was discovered in 1985. And then they got a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1996 for its discovery. But there really wasn't anything, it was really hard to make. And it wasn't until the early 2000s that they actually did test studies. And one of the first test studies they had was they gave it to rats. They found that C60 increased the lifespan of test rats by 90% over controls. They did another one with mice, and it increased their lifespan as well. It completely prevented cognitive decline with aging in mice. And then there's been just one after the other of these studies. But really, there's very few people know about C60. It's kind of in the small science and woo-woo world, and it's kind of unique. It's usually I have a Zoom. I have my background and a few other things I can access. But C60 is like a spherical carbon molecule of 60 carbon atoms, and it's shaped exactly like a little soccer ball. And so it's kind of unique in the chemistry world. That's why they got a Nobel Prize in chemistry. And it's very selective antioxidants. We hear about antioxidants. They're basically oxidative radicals are causing your body to rust, just like causes your iron to rust, your car to rust. And so when that happens, you can get things like cross-linking of proteins, so they don't work. They can damage your RNA and DNA, or they can punch holes in your cell or your mitochondrial membranes. So that's why antioxidants are good. But the thing about C60, it's kind of a selective antioxidant. It only really interacts with the oxidative radicals of superoxide. That's an oxygen with an extra electron, and that's the most damaging oxidative radical in your body. And the mitochondria make a lot of that. And then it also reacts with the hydroxyl ion, and that's the second most damaging oxidative radical in the body. And one of the things about these two, and that's all it interacts with. It doesn't interact with like nitrogen oxides and hydrogen peroxide, and there's other antioxidants based around sulfur, iron, and zinc. And your body actually uses those as signaling molecules, because the nitrogen oxides, they dilate or shrink your capillaries. Hydrogen peroxide does other signaling molecules in your body. And so that's why a lot of times if you take vitamin D or E or A, you can have negative health effects, because those kind of antioxidants will interfere with signaling molecules. But C60 doesn't interfere with any of the body's signaling molecules. And I told you about how they did things like they gave rabbits arthritis. Then they found that C60 stopped the inflammation, but it also regrew the cartilage. And so finally they decided, what are we going to do? Let's find out, does C60 really have a toxicity? So they did an extreme science experiment where they gave rats 1 gram of C60 per kilogram of body weight, which is 10,000 times what they found to be a health beneficial dose in other scientific studies. And even at that level, C60 had no toxicity. Now, if you did that with vitamin A or vitamin D at that level, it would have killed the rats right off. But C60 didn't do that, because it only interacts with those 2 oxidative radicals that the body doesn't use as signaling molecules, and nothing else in your body. It doesn't interact with pharmaceuticals, minerals, nutrients, supplements, nothing. Just those 2 high energy oxidative radicals.
So you mentioned some of the health benefits already. You mentioned your experience with macular degeneration and that it could be protective against radiation. Are there any other health benefits people should be aware of?
Oh yeah, what C60 do is it's classified as an SOD mimic, that superoxide dismutase, but it also does the job of catalase in taking care of superoxide. That's like one of the most damaging oxidative radical in your body, made by the mitochondria. So it really, any cells in your body that have a lot of mitochondria, the C60 is really going to benefit. So when people take it, like within the first week, people get more mental clarity. The brain fog disappears. They can focus more, because nerve cells have the most mitochondria in the body. They actually work the hardest. The brain's like 3 pounds and it uses 20% of the body's energy. So that's what you're going to notice too. And the other is the next set of body tissues, I guess, or organs that have high levels of mitochondria are like the organs that produce the hormones, the various glands that do that. And that's the second thing. People feel like this increase in energy, just general well-being. And that has 2 things, because in the mitochondria in your cells, especially in the glands or organs that produce the hormones, they produce pregnenolone, which is the precursor molecule for the hormones. So basically, when you restore mitochondrial function in your cells, which is what C60 does primarily, then now you have this pregnenolone, which can be converted into any sort of hormones you want. So like in the pineal gland, it turns into melatonin. After about a month or so, 2 weeks to a month, the people notice better sleep. It also produces human growth, the pineal hypothalamus complex produces human growth hormone and a bunch of other master hormones. And then your thymus, your thyroid, they produce obviously T3 and T4, and then your adrenals. So like your hormone levels go up across your body. And that's what people notice about them. That takes a couple of months to ramp that all up, but that'll be the other one. So people, they have like an increase in motivation, the libido goes way up, and they just have like more energy to do things than they had for years.
All right, very cool. Sounds like it has a lot of different benefits and a lot of. So I work with people who have thyroid conditions, autoimmune thyroid conditions, and most of these people have Graves' disease or Hashimoto's, so which are autoimmune conditions. So can you get into a little bit more detail about the effects that it has on the immune system, how it might benefit people with autoimmunity?
Well, the first thing it does, it reduces inflammation. That's because it's an antioxidant. It reduces inflammation, especially the most damaging oxidative radicals. So that's one of the key things. And Hashimoto's is a autoimmune disease, as we know. And of course, one of the things it does best, it heals a lot of inflammation in the gut. We've had so many reports back from customers about how it does that for them. And so obviously, a lot of the autoimmune is actually just, they call it autoimmune, but usually it's the body is attacking a tissue or organ because it's gone haywire. And the biggest cause of that autoimmune causes is in the gut. You got a leaky gut, it's just going to cause chaos on your body. So if you can take care of that leaky gut, then the levels go down. And like we've had people who've been taking thyroid medication. They could get one case they could take off 2/3 of their thyroid medication. We've had several other people that were just minor, got off of it and completely. And we're not sure exactly how that's going on. Obviously, it reduces the inflammation. It produces the pregnenolone, so now the hormones can be produced in the cells. And one of the other things we've also found is C60 stimulates stem cell production. It causes apoptosis in like senescent cells. So any cells not working in your body, which are senescent cells, or like zombie cells, it tends to help them. Once the mitochondria are activated, they'll do apoptosis, which gets rid of senescent cells. They're replaced by stem cells, which have a full set of telomeres and can do the job. And so through that this takes like, for the person that had like 2/3 and this took like over a year for them to do this. Okay. And for another person, a couple of years. And that's why we think it has something to do with stem cell replacement and improvement in function. So it's not like an overnight thing. This is something that took like a year or two. And the same with my macular degeneration. That took like 7 months. With Gary Rodriguez on his, it took like about 1.5 years to completely disappear. So it's a if you have a problem that took years to happen, C60 C60 does, it lifts the oxidative burden. The cells are under, so then they can heal themselves, but that takes a while.
Okay, so from what I understand, first of all, from an autoimmune standpoint, like Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, these are inflammatory conditions, so it helps to reduce inflammation, reducing oxidative stress, supports the mitochondria, which is overall going to help. But then it also seems to increase stem cells, which it seems maybe then like over a period, again, we can't make any promises, or you can't make any promises, yeah. But as far as, if someone were, let's say with Hashimoto's, if they're taking thyroid hormone replacement and they're on the C60 for a year or two, you've seen cases where it seems like it might be regenerating some of the thyroid tissue, or it's helping with that, correct?
Yes, and a part of that, I think, on the Hashimoto's, the inflammation thing, they've done some human studies. I'll just go like some of them. Basically, the first study with C60 in humans was in Japan. They basically put C60 in a face cream, and they found that C60 significantly reduced wrinkles and lines in Japanese women's faces. Then they did another where they used it topically on hair, and they found C60 significantly increased hair growth and brought back hair with people that have that basically have lost hair due to other conditions than male pattern baldness. So it really worked there. And then they did a lot of other in tissue samples and one of the things they did is they took mast cells, which are immune cells. They released the histamines, which tend to cause the whole allergic reaction and other reactions. They found that it moderated the release in histamines. And so then from that human stem cell study, or human mast cell study, they took it to animal studies. And I think they had some rats that were conditioned to go into anaphylactic shock when exposed to an allergen. And so they had the C60 rats, the ones that didn't. So the C60 rats, when exposed to the allergen, didn't go into anaphylactic shock, whereas the control group did. And so, and that probably has something to do with the reduction in inflammation, autoimmune disease. It seems C60 seems to moderate or drive the immune response to homeostasis. So it's, instead of going off and going crazy and attacking the body's own tissues, it kind of moderates and does its job correctly. And so there's probably two things. You're first off, the autoimmune system autoimmune condition is probably being reduced. And then on the other side, the C60 is helping lifting the oxidative burden so the cells can heal themselves. And those two things working together seem to be responsible for, and we've had the same thing, by the way, with hormone replacement therapy. Like we had a guy, he was, and this is actually several people, but this is a specific one. He had a testosterone level of 350. And the doctor had put him on cream. So he was in the low 700s when he went into test. Then he came in, he used C60. About 3 months later, he went into the doctor to get his periodic test, and his testosterone level was 1200. So his doctor backed him off. Oh, by the way, I should put in a counterindication here. One of the things you got to be careful for, if you're on a blood thinner and you're going to take C60, you need to contact talk with your doctor, because the blood thinness is the mineral corticoids produced in your adrenals. And if you take C60, it'll return production of mineral corticoids in your adrenals. And if you're on a blood thinner, then your blood can be too thin. So if you're, that's a safety concern. So if you're on blood thinners, you need to consult with your doctor before you take C60.
Okay, good to know. So it's kind of like a contraindication, but not because it's really harmful. It's just that you might not need as much of the medication, so you wouldn't want to take it and have your blood thin further. So that's why if you decide taking it, check with your medical doctor is what you're saying. Yeah,
the hormones and other things like the thyroid hormones and the sex hormone, it seems to happen a little slower than that. And it's not as critical because you're going in 3 months, 6 months. So, but blood thinners, yeah, you definitely need to check with your doctor immediately.
Okay, again, that's good to know. And so it does take time, but from what I understand, it's not like 3-6 months or a year for like every condition. Like
no.
You might notice mental clarity increase in other symptoms a lot quicker. Maybe not from day one, but maybe within like a few days, a few weeks.
Yeah, you'll notice the mental clarity that comes the first weeks. After a couple of weeks, a lot of people says their motivation comes back, and part of that is the return of dopamine production, because C60 is an antioxidant and it really helps suppress inflammation. And one of the things inflammation is there's two types. There's acute and chronic. Acute's when you twist your ankle or damage it kind of swells up and immobilizes it so they can't use it. Well, there's another thing that goes on, and that's dopamine suppression. And so basically when those inflammatory signals go out, dopamine production in your body is produced, because in nature, if you've got an injured ankle, it doesn't want you to get up and be running around on it. You need time to fix. And so dopamine is kind of like the motivation molecule that gets you up in the bed in the morning. So, your ankle's hurt and you just feel lethargic and just want to lie around, which is what the body wants you to do so it can heal. And that's great. But there's also chronic inflammation, which is an arthritis or joints, or you've got gut inflammation, and it'll signal the same dopamine suppression. And that's why a lot of people, when they just say, I just don't want to do anything, I just want to lie around on the couch, I don't want to do this. And so when you take C60, it'll suppress that chronic inflammation, dopamine production comes back online, and then people get up and say, oh, well, they start doing like an exercise routine they did, or they start the hobbies they did, or maybe they go out and visit friends that they just haven't been feeling like the energy to do. And that, quote, return of energy is actually return of dopamine. And then all the consequences once your dopamine levels return to normal.
All right. Well, thank you for that explanation. And, so when someone has any kind of health condition, and let's say they're working with, a natural healthcare practitioner or, functional medicine doctor, so of course they're going to recommend the basics, or most of them, what you would hope, recommend the basics like eat well, clean up your diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, manage your stress, try to get, sufficient sleep. So is it safe to say that C60 isn't like a, magic, it's not like a magic formula? You still need to be doing other things to improve your health in combination with taking it?
Yeah, C60 is not the magic pill. C60 can restore mitochondria function and get your cells, lift that oxidative burden. But if you're not providing like the proper nutrition for them, the cells can't rebuild themselves. If you don't getting like the right sleep, avoiding, toxic situations, toxic environment, exercise. I mean, you need to do all those things. C60 is just one tool in the toolbox on your path to good health, but it's not a magic pill. It won't cure things. It doesn't cure things on its own. It just lifts the oxidative burden. You've got to do everything else to make sure once that's happened that the cells have everything they need to heal themselves and move to the next level.
Okay, and then so are there any other side effects besides not contraindication side effects? So you mentioned like the blood thinners, like you don't want to take it, or you want to run it by your doctor, if you're taking blood thinners. Is there anything else?
One thing is we recommend taking C60 in the morning because it kind of ramps up mitochondria production and everything starts running. It kind of gets you up, gets you going, the hormone levels rise. If you take it late at night or in the evening, it can sometimes keep you up from sleeping. So it's really, a lot of people put it in their coffee in the morning, kind of with their paleo coffee, because C60 doesn't have any solubility in water, so it has to be dissolved in oil. And we have it in the all organic healthy oils of like olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT coconut oil, whatever your choice is there. But best take it in the morning. And if you take too much, it can give you a little of the zoomies. Most people who are average weight, younger to mid age, a teaspoon in the morning is probably fine. If you got a little gray hair and a few years on you, like I am, I just turned 60. Probably a tablespoon is more appropriate. I weigh about 180 something pounds, got a few years on me, so I take a tablespoon a day.
Okay. And it's okay. Like I take it, I don't mix it with anything. I just pretty much take it right off the, maybe I should take a little bit more. I'm 51, so maybe I should take more than a teaspoon, but I've been taking a teaspoon in the morning, not mixing it with my smoothie or anything else. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, to get absorption directly. Now, if you've never taken an oil before, especially MCT oil, your body takes like a month or two to learn how to digest it. Your pancreas and, the DM have to like adjust and learn. So you might want to just take it with food. If you take it in a straight oil and you have a little digestive problem going through you, so just take it with food. But if you've taken oils before straight, you're on a natural diet or something like that, it probably won't be a problem. So that's just something to be aware of. But your body eventually adjusts to taking an oil straight. It learns, and then it's not a problem at all.
Okay, great. And I'll say also, it doesn't taste bad. Like some, glutathione has some great benefits, and I commonly recommend glutathione, but that has a real strong taste. If you try to, just take that straight, it's for some people, they refuse to take it just because it's very strong. But this is not. This is kind of like a neutral taste. I won't say it tastes good, but it just doesn't taste bad. Like it's fine. It doesn't. Yeah, I would think more neutral.
Yeah, we picked a extra virgin olive oil that didn't have like too much of a bite to it. So it's not really biting. And of course, avocado oil, just an oil, doesn't really have much of a taste at all. And then the MCT oil, it doesn't taste like coconut. MCTs are actually shorter chain triglycerides. It's actually a distillate of regular coconut oil. So a lot of the coconut oil flavors, it's almost has no flavor at all, just a tiny little flavor that if you put it with food, you can't taste that it's there. So yeah, no flavors, so it's easy to take. And the thing about C60, one of the key things is, like, there's really 4 big antioxidants in your cells that your cells use that are the key ones, and most of these are, and that's like SOD, superoxide dismutase, and catalase. That takes care of superoxide. Then you've got glutathione, and that does a lot of jobs. One of its jobs is the hydroxyl ion, and that's one of its big jobs. And so if C60 can do that job, the glutathione you've got left can do the other things that it's meant to do. And the things about, and then the only of the big 4 is CoQ10. That's the only one you can really supplement for. I know there's supplements for glutathione. They got the liposomals that'll go through, and some of the sublinguals, and it's still, it's hard to get it from, absorption to the cells that need it. Whereas C60 passes the gut barrier, the brain-blood barrier. You can have 10 to the 17th power of C60 molecules in your body when you're taking it. So it gets everywhere, so it can do its job. So that's kind of the nice thing, because you can't supplement for SOD. and catalase. There's no nothing at all will do that. So and that's really what C60 really works for, because usually when you have mitochondrial dysfunction, and there's thousands of different types, quote, because each cell or tissue produces different things, the mitochondria produce different things for. But C60 gets right in there, replaces the missing SOD and catalase, so your mitochondria can ramp back up. And then you've got your ATP, which is the energy molecule of your cell, your pregnenolone. A lot of the precursors for DNA and RNA synthesis are made in the mitochondria. And then in any particular organ or tissue, the mitochondria are kind of designed to make precursors for a lot of that. So, in your thyroid, it'll be making precursors for this, or in your nerve cells, it makes precursors for the neurotransmitters. So, and that's why if you restore mitochondrial function throughout your body, then a lot of problems go away.
Yeah, that is true. Would you say it's overkill if someone, let's say someone's currently taking liposomal glutathione, and then they're listening to this and this sounds great and they want to give C60 a try? Is there harm of taking C60 with glutathione? And if there's not harm, is it like overkill where you really don't need to take both of those, where you would just, want to take the C60 and not the glutathione?
No, I would take them together, because all C60 does is one job of glutathione, and that's taking care of the hydroxyl ion. Glutathione has like a dozen other jobs. And usually if you're taking glutathione, it's because those dozen other jobs aren't working either. So yeah, if you're taking glutathione supplement and you can add C60 to it and it's not going to interfere, it'll certainly help, because now a lot of the hydroxyl ions which are being produced that your glutathione goes after, it doesn't have to go after those. It can go on and do the other jobs it needs. But yeah, glutathione is such a valuable antioxidant, does so many jobs. Yeah, don't stop glutathione supplementation if you need to take it.
Yeah, and then also CoQ10 is one. I've listened to some of the interviews on C60 in preparation for this call, doing my research, and so it's fine to take CoQ10.
Oh yeah, take your CoQ10. Yeah, the key thing about C60 is it does SOD and catalase. It's because C60 actually in your body you've got superoxide, and it's usually produced in your mitochondria. C60 is actively uptaken in the mitochondria, and what usually happens in your body is SOD would turn superoxide into hydrogen peroxide. Then catalase turns hydrogen peroxide back into water and oxygen. What C60 does, C60 just steals the electron off the superoxide, turns it back to a regular oxygen, so you don't even need the catalase on the second stage. So catalase levels tend to rise when you're taking C60. That's why you tend to go from, like, if you have all white hair, you start going back to salt and pepper and things. And so, and the thing is, there's just no replacement for SOD or catalase. And there's just no way to supplement. You can't really take precursors. That doesn't work either. C60 is really the only thing that does that specific thing. And it, of course, helps with the hydroxyl ion, which is what radiation produces. And so it's kind of very specific. It's one of those tools in your toolbox for good health, but believe me, you need all the other tools as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting with the radiation, because a lot of people with hyperthyroidism end up receiving radioactive iodine, which one of my goals is to try to help people prevent from, to not stop them. Obviously it's their choice, but just to educate people and, help them save their thyroid gland. And so, but for those who choose to receive radioactive iodine, this might be something that they might want to consider taking.
Yeah, well, the thing is that once you've taken the radioactive iodine, it's already done its job. You just take it once. Radioactive iodine has an 8-day half-life. So basically within, 2 months, it's totally gone for your body. It's done its job. That's it. C60 can go in there, and it kind of, once the ATP in your cells get back up, then they can kind of self-regulate. Everything is driven for homeostasis, whether it's in your hormones or, the hormone producing things, or in like muscle cells, especially athletes that use C60, they get way more performance. Your brain function repurposes. So C60 kind of lifts the oxidative burden, and cells can drive for homeostasis. And that's kind of its key thing. It can't cure, prevent, mitigate, or diagnose any diseases, obviously, as the FDA likes to tell us, but it's a really thing. It just lifts the oxidative burden, and you go back to functioning like the way you were 10, 20 years before, as far as a lot of that hormone function and mental clarity tends to go.
Okay, so again, getting back on, so the radioactive iodine, like you said, maybe, again, if someone takes it maybe temporarily, how about so like things like non-ionizing radiation, like exposure to, even like cell phones and, Wi-Fi, is that something where it might be protective against those?
Oh, yes, it does, because those can cause oxidative damage. For years and years, they said that, it's caused by, if it, microwaves, right? Which, the RF radiation can do is heating your body up. So if it doesn't heat the cells up, it heats them up half a degree, well, then it's not causing damage. Well, now they found out that those microwave, certain frequencies, we have voltage gated channels in our cells, and they primarily bring in sodium, potassium, calcium, right? And because they're ions, right? And that's ion is basically charged, so you need voltage levels to bring it in and out. And now they found that certain frequencies of microwaves and other frequencies jam up those voltage gated channels. So things can leak out of your body or leak in because they're jammed open and they're not closing and opening right, that shouldn't be there. And then when they get in there, they can cause oxidative damage, a lot of it. And so if you have C60 can stop that oxidative damage before it goes on and causes more damage. And I was reading this one study where they found that when they expose people like cell phones and Wi-Fi levels, it caused their animals and people to like increase their take of carbohydrates like 20 to 30%, which caused the rats and people to get bigger. So actually just EM radiation, and it's something to do with the regulation of hormones in the brain. Now, we don't know if C60 is preventing that from happening, but just the exposure, nobody knew that. You get exposed to high levels of radio frequency, that's the microwave and everything else. It causes you to want to eat more carbs, and of course you gain weight, which might explain, why America has and other advanced countries have a weight problem.
Yeah, those are good points as well. And so let's talk a little bit about choosing a brand of C60. What should people know when they shop for a brand? Like, what do they need to be on the lookout for?
Well, there's probably three things you want to look for. First is purity. You want to get like 99.99% like we have, or 99.98%, something up there at that level. And then you also want to, and that's important because you also want to make sure the way your C60 is produced. We use sublimated C60. And if you remember from your high school chemistry class, sublimation is the cousin of evaporation. It's when a solid turns into a gas and then back into a solid. So we take when you make C60, it's made the same way it's made in giant outer atmospheres of giant red stars. You basically have a chamber with a light helium atmosphere, maybe a tenth of that Earth, 2 carbon rods, you run electricity through them and make a bunch of this ashes. And maybe if you do it right, 10% of those ashes are C60. Now you got to separate them. Well, you just put those ashes in the separator and the C60, turn it on, the C60 turns to a gas at about 400 degrees Celsius, and it just kind of floats to the other side of the sublimator, condenses, and you just scrape it off the plates. That's how you get 99.99% C60. Now there's another way. In fact, most C60 is actually produced by a solvent method. And they take those ashes and they use the powerful solvent of methylbenzene, which is also known as toluene, and C60 will dissolve in that. Then they got the C60 and this methylbenzene. Then they take it to another place and they boil off the methylbenzene, and then they have to bake it again to get rid of it. But it's you can never get rid of it. So like if you go out there and you see somebody telling you they got 99.9% pure C60, chances are that 0.1% is methylbenzene, which is toluene, which is a toxic industrial chemical, which is kind of what you're trying to avoid getting in your body if you're taking it. Or God forbid you see 99.5%. That's 0.5% methylbenzene. And even at 99.99%, if it's solvent based, there's still a tiny little bit of methylbenzene, which you kind of want to avoid in the first place in there. So that's really, so always look for sublimated C60. And any company that produces sublimated C60, they'll just say that, sublimated C60. They'll say, some companies will say solvent free. That's fine, probably not true unless it's sublimated. Unless it's sublimated C60, it's not solvent free. And of course, you want the high purity 99.99%, which is the way sublimation works. It's very, very efficient at making pure stuff because it's like evaporation, so and distillation. And so that's why you're looking for it. And then the third one you want to look for is have it in healthier carrier oils. Now, there's some oils that have a really long shelf life, but they're very inflammatory because they have high levels of omega-6s. In fact, you shouldn't be taking any of these oils at all. And those are like safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil. I mean, these are all highly inflammatory and very unhealthy oils for you. And then on the other side of like this Goldilocks equation, you have wonderfully healthy oils for you because they're high in omega-3s, and that's like fish oil, flaxseed oil, hemp seed oil. The only problem with that high omega-3 levels is it goes rancid really quickly. In fact, if you're buying a fish oil or a hemp seed oil or a flaxseed oil, please buy them out of the refrigerated section of your health food store. You know, if you're buying it off the shelf, you don't know how long that fish oil's been on the shelf. Chances are it might be rancid, and rancid oils are really bad for you. So what we've done is we've kind of chosen the Goldilocks of oils. And that's oils that have like a nice omega-3, omega-6 balance. So they're anti-inflammatory and healthy for you. And that also gives them like a long shelf life so that you can get the product. And so we picked like, obviously, olive oil. You know, everybody knows about the Mediterranean diet. People have used olive oil for centuries. It's really healthy for you. And then another one is avocado oil. That's really healthy for you. All our oils are all organic, by the way. And then there's MCT coconut oil, which is, now MCT holds a little less C60 than the others, but because it has that benefit of the MCTs being turned into ketones in your body, that gives a flex fuel for your cells, which is really important. And a lot of athletes use that too, because they put it in their water as they do, like especially runners or bicyclists. So every time they drink, they're getting like a shot of energy, C60, to help protect against the oxidative burden that they're creating by high energy, and of course their water. So it kind of works out there. So those are like the three Goldilocks oils that are good for you and have a decent shelf life.
Okay, so when you said make sure it's sublimated, and it would say that on the label typically.
Yeah, you should look for sublimated. You want to look for the 99.99% pure, or 99.98%, because that's basically high. That's the purity level you want. And then you should also look for you'd want to look for the sublimated there too, because you know it could be 99.9%, but it came through the solvent method. So, and we have on our labels and by the way, you know, there's just a thing back in the day when C60 was, you know, a small thing before it became quote popular, even though it's in the pre-adapter stage. You know, everybody that made a product made a good product, you know, because they and their family used it, right? Once C60 became popular, we have all these fly-by-nighters came in, and they're producing products that, you know, they're just lying. They don't have C60 in them, or they have low concentrations of C60, or they have, you know, or it's just whatever they're using, you know, low quality C60. So you have to be careful these days. And like for instance, in our products, I should have one with me, but I'm in a remote office. We have a QR code on the side of our packages, and you can actually go to the QR code and you can see certificates of analysis on our oils, where they, you know, that they are certified. They're olive oil, they're coconut, they're avocado oil, all organic. And then we also have certifications on the purity of our C60 products. But also after our done manufacturing, our products go to a third party who measures them for microbiologics and C60 concentration. And that's also up on that QR code. And so at CBD, actually, we got that from the CBD industry, because the CBD industry went through the same thing. There's a few really great producers. Then it became popular, all these fly-by-nighters. So we got the QR code and other companies should provide you the QR code. And so that you can actually see the certificates of analysis for yourself. It's just part of that good standard business practices. And yeah, and there's guys out there that produce a sublimated, and we're not the only ones. There's other good companies that do that. But if you look for those three and follow that, then you'll get a good C60 product, no matter who you're buying it from.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the third-party testing, because that is a good idea when really purchasing any supplements. If you can get one where they are using a third party, just to confirm, you know, what you're buying, what's on the label is actually yes. what you're buying.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's just like the CBD business came. You know, in the future it'll probably get better, but for now you have to be careful and read the labels and do your own checking.
Yeah, but it's not only CBD, the CBD industry. It's even like consumer labs. You know, they randomly tested other, like probiotics, for example. They did just random testing of probiotics and regular stores like, GNC and Walgreens and, Target, Walmart. I forgot specifically this. Some of them I might be mentioning that aren't on the list, but point is they just randomly tested certain supplements. And it doesn't mean that all the supplements like in GNC, just like random supplements. And they found that, some of the probiotics were, it didn't have the CFU, the colony forming units that was on the label. It didn't have sometimes the strains. So yeah, whatever you buy, you really do want to make sure it's ideally third-party tested. So
yes, and that goes for pretty much any product you buy. I mean, they did a recent thing and they found that all these household products, sprays and cleaners had like unhealthy levels of benzene in them. 25%. They just had like this consumer agency went just independent, took them off the shelf, and lo and behold, like 25% of the products that you're buying in the supermarket had unhealthy levels of benzene in them. So I mean, it's really, getting third-party tests on anything, even the cleaners and other things that you use, it's important.
Yeah, definitely. And let's see, is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I think we covered pretty much everything. There's lots and lots. I mean, there's lots and lots of studies on C60. And the thing's also, when you're looking for a C60 product, C60 only works as a dissolved substance in an oil, basically a healthy oil. And that's the only health benefit that it has. Like there's people that they'll try to sell like C60 in water. There's a polyhydroxynated C60, but that's not available to the average person. It's only for laboratory use and it's very expensive. And so like if somebody's telling you C60 dissolved in water, no, it's suspended particles, because only dissolved C60 has any benefit. Particles of C60 have no benefit and are actually slightly inflammatory. And so you have to be careful of that. And then there's people out there saying that C60 can be supercharged. They have supercharged C60, or they have the ES, they have various ESO or different names for it. But it's really what you're looking for. Just look for the three things: 99.9% purity, sublimated C60, and a healthier carrier oil. And that way you can be sure of it. And there's sure of good product. And there's lots of scientific studies out there that you can read, and it's the same thing as the C60 dissolved C60 or polyhydroxynated, because that's the only biologically effective C60. Particles of C60 don't have any benefit at all for anybody.
All right. So where can people learn more about C60 and specifically Purple Power?
We can go to c60purplepower.com. We have a science page up there that you can read and learn. We're only allowed to post human-related studies there, so you can see the studies of the Japanese women, the hair studies. They've had a few others, those human cells in test tubes. There's also a site. I don't know if it comes up and down because it's called What is C60, and it may be up right now or it will soon be up, and they're kind of working on it, I think. And that just has all the studies, all the biological studies, both the human and the animal studies, so that you can see that, because technically the FDA or other agencies don't want us to, because you cannot you cannot say that the animal study may have doubled the lifespan of test animals, but that does not apply to humans. And so obviously we can't do that. But those studies are out there for you, like at What is C60, to study for yourself, or you can wander around. I mean, it's just done amazing studies of things that have done. And sometimes they have independent customer testimonials out there, which we can't post either, specifically relating to any particular disease or condition, because that would be, that's verboten for websites. So, but there's lots of other people who talk about, what the things that C60 have done for them, and just amazing. I mean, I can talk about it because it's my personal experience with getting rid of macular degeneration. And other people, you'll see people have posted like videos on how things happened with them, on things that went away that shouldn't have happened, and the stem cell increases the stem cell. And but yeah, it's done but for animal studies, just done amazing things. I mean, there's just like the radiation studies. They not only got rid of the arthritic damage, but it got rid of the inflammation. It regrew the cartilage. It prevented like the cytokine storm in animals' lungs. It actually dissolves. C60 in the test tube has been found to catalyze out graphene hydroxide. Poof, it just goes away. And so, I mean, there's just amazing animal studies, which may or may not translate into human stuff. But the thing about C60, it works at the cellular level. That's where it works. It works in the cells, and basically the difference between an animal cell and a human cell are pretty minor. Because there's very, very little difference in the cellular metabolism of cells. So that's kind of gives you a hint on that. But there are people that, the three-letter agencies that regulate things would say, only certain things can be said and certain things can't. And so we follow those guidelines. But, if you wander around and look at the animal studies, you'll just see all kinds of amazing benefits of C60.
All right. Yeah. Sounds amazing. I mean, some of the things, even again, a lot, like you said, in the animal studies, but just your personal experience alone is impressive with the macular degeneration. And I'm sure there are many other success stories. Again, you mentioned the thyroid, some of the thyroid success stories. So I'll make sure to put a link in the description. And then also I have a coupon code.
Yes.
So I'll put that also in the description as well. And I think that's for 10% off the Purple Power.
Yes, it is. Yes, and if it's a sales going on, you can still use the coupon code with the sale and get the added benefit. So,
good to know.
Dr. Eric will benefit from that. But for me personally, one of the greatest things about C60 is it got rid of like the fear. Like I had macular degeneration. I'm a scientist. If I lose my vision, that's pretty devastating. So no, I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about losing my vision. I don't have to worry about having to experience cognitive decline as I get older. I don't have to worry about all of these other things that, usually happen with aging because I have C60. I don't have to worry about that, because I've seen the studies and I've seen how it did for all the other animal test studies, and it's just my personal opinion, and for my personal results, anecdotally, of course, a lot of the worry that I used to have goes away. I can worry about other things because there's plenty of those as well. But at least, going blind and losing cognitive function isn't one of those worries anymore.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, thanks. Thank you so much, Ken. Appreciate you taking the time. And just thank you for sharing the information on C60 and Purple Power.
Glad to be on, and I hope to talk with you again sometime.
All right. Yes, we definitely will. And let's go ahead and if there are any questions, I know there's a comment so far, but if there's any other questions, let us know. So the first, I'll display it here. Would C60's anti-inflammatory properties help subacute thyroiditis and hair loss from hyperthyroidism? So not sure if you can answer subacute thyroiditis. It is, inflammatory, usually caused by a virus. So I'm thinking it should help with subacute thyroiditis. Yes. I don't know any case studies, but that would be my guess. But I know that you mentioned hair loss when it was applied topically. But
it works internally as well. If you take C60, your nails and hair will grow much longer. Like we had some women, their hair only came down here. They could never get it. Now they took C60. It's much longer. It seems to increase the amount of hair growth. And it also seems to keep the hair follicles functioning longer. The result is longer hair growth, thicker nails. It would definitely work with that. And one of the things, C60 is anti-inflammatory, and it helps moderate the immune response. So it strengthens the immune system, because obviously when you have an immune problem, you're fighting a virus, let's say, or a bacteria, you need, the immune cells get their cells from stem cells. So if you have like a plentiful, because we have like 7-year-olds go in for stem cell therapy. There's a lot of stem cell therapy place here on the Front Range of Colorado. And then, so we have a lot of our our customers go in there and they come running out, where do you get these stem cells? Because they have like the stem cell level of a 20-year-old and they're in their 70s. And so if you got an immune challenge, now you got these stem cells, those stem cells are converted into immune cells, which then can go into fighting diseases. So C60 definitely stimulates and supports the immune system to make it more efficient. And anyone who's taken C60, the amount of like, I got a certain something that's going around and was pretty minor, right? And the same thing, you'll notice that, people tell, I had like something and it wasn't as bad as it used to be. So people, that just seems, because it strengthens the immune system, and then everything flows from that. So it could probably help if it's fighting that virus. And there's of course other things that you could do if you have virus conditions that can help strengthen that. I mean, because C60 is just one thing, but yeah. So if you do have a problem like that, there's various what is that? There's an amino acid that suppresses virus production.
Lysine, yeah.
Yeah, lysine. That's it, lysine. Yeah. So if you take like a lot of lysine, yeah, I mean, because it's just C60 will do one thing, but you need to do all those other things as well. So yeah, taking lysine is a great idea to suppress if you've got especially if you got those retroviruses. We all got Epstein-Barr and who knows what other retroviruses hanging out in our body. It's just part of what you get as you live on planet Earth. And so certain things you can do to reduce viral load by by supporting immune system is a great idea.
Yeah, and also I need to add that hyperthyroidism itself commonly causes hair loss. So that's one thing. Like if you take the C60, but the hyperthyroidism is still if the thyroid is out of balance, that's you need to balance the thyroid gland. Whether I'm
not a medical doctor and can't give medical advice, but one thing if you really want to do is you want to get fluoride out of your water and any other products that have fluoride in, because basically you're looking at T3 and T4. That's the 3 and the 4 are the number of iodine ions. Molecules are supposed to be on those hormones. And if you've got really high levels of fluoride, you get a fluoride item on one of those spots, which can happen because they're in the same chemical family. And that's that's a big cause. I'm not a medical doctor, can't get medical advice, but that's a really big cause. So if you get fluoride out of your diet, out of your water, that'll do huge things for you.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely, I use reverse osmosis. There's also Berkey filter that, that also, I think you have to purchase the fluoride filter separately, but, that also is an option. And then you have, of course, there's plenty of fluoride-free toothpaste these days as well, which I use. So yeah, I do agree that's a good idea to try to not, if you go out to eat every now and then, which hopefully you're not doing regularly, and you drink some tap water every now and then, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, definitely in your home, you don't want to be drinking fluoridated water on a regular basis.
Yeah, we're just, that's after they brought those paperclip Nazis over to the United States, because the Soviets and the Nazis have been using the same level of fluoride in our water in their prisoner of war camps to keep their prisoners of war obedient and complacent. And then they brought those Nazis over here, and then all of a sudden it's in our water supply. So not a good thing. You don't want fluoride in your water supply.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. And I think that's it. If there's any last call for questions, if there's no questions, we'll call it a day. But so that might be it. But all right. Well, give another few seconds and just make sure this is usually we get more questions. This actually streams. I have a Facebook page, but then I have 2 Facebook groups, and each of them have like over 5,000 people in there. But again, maybe today it's
well, if you do have more questions like later, your listeners, you can send those questions in to support@c60purplepower.com, and they'll either go to somebody who can answer it, and if they can't answer it, it comes to me and I answer it personally. So if you have other questions, like the people that watch this later when it's not live, feel free to ask those questions. We're happy to answer them for you.
All right, sounds good. Well, again, thanks, Ken. Appreciate. Oh, actually, hold on. There's just a comment coming in late. Excited to watch the recording. All right, yes, definitely. As soon as we wrap up, this will be on Facebook, and I'll also be uploading it to my YouTube channel, Natural Thyroid Doctor. But yeah, it'll be available pretty much, I think, immediately once we end the call on Facebook. So yeah, definitely check out the interview. And all right. Well, again, Ken, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you about antioxidants, especially C60, of course. And again, just excited about learning myself, because it's just been recent. Last year is when I learned about it. And I'm excited that others are now learning about it as well, and we'll get an opportunity to test it out.
Well, thanks for having me on. I look forward to another episode.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great rest of your Wednesday and a great week ahead.